Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Fellas. This week, we're discussing the Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix and what started out as a wet Grand Prix quickly changed to a not wet Grand Prix. Having said that, let's discuss safety versus spectacle at Spa. Guys, I mean, we all know that the race was delayed due to the downpour. But 4 laps behind the safety car before they released the cars. I mean, Formula One has always been known to run in the wet. So anyway, Ray, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think there was I think they may have held it too long as far as they erred very much on the safety side because there are multiple drivers calling for, why is the race not starting? Why is the race not starting? Right. So understandably, you don't worry about the guys in the front as much as the guys behind when the water is kicked up by the tires. So, but I think, this is the second time I can recall, I think, that the FIA, went a bit too far on the safety side. They could have, they could have let the race go a little bit sooner.
Simon?
So as far as the rain is concerned, I really was excited when I woke up this morning and to watch the race and saw that there was going to be a weather element to it. And I was like, yes, Lewis has an opportunity to come back. There's going to be some turmoil. But from the safety standpoint, I understood why they were doing it. Not only did they have people in attendance that were there in 2019 when Anthony, I can't remember his last name right now, passed away from F2. So, that's going through people's mind. It's the temperature is already set around safety. Plus, I heard Verstappen on the radio getting a little antsy about it. Verstappen is self-made. He has his own business, if you will, right? His driving is his own business. So he's going to look at it from a different perspective. But the director has a job. And when you have a job, you have a responsibility and you have to take care of things or you're out of a job. So he's going to err on the side of caution. He's going to be more conservative. Plus, with the amplified attention that's around safety on that day and what happened in 2019, I was okay with them being a little bit more cautious. I was just excited it was raining because I knew there was going to be some excitement. And that's all I really care about in Formula One is seeing some excitement in the driver.
I believe his name was Anthony Hubert.
Yes.
Forgive me if that's not it. But I know his mom was in attendance. She was in the paddock. So, from that standpoint, yes. But and again, I still remember watching the race when Gilles Bianchi died in Japan. It was like a monsoon on the track. It was different circumstances, but they were trying to clear a car and he hit the crane. But anyway, so I can understand. But yes, I knew Lewis is a rainmeister, right? He is strong in the rain, and Max is strong in the rain, And I also know that Lando is
yes, sir.
Strong in the rain. So I was really looking forward to see how this is, and maybe my ignorance, I'm not sure how strong Oscar is, and I wanted to see that as well, But
we saw it though.
We saw it. So I for me, holding them up for so long, and also teams that had set up their cars with either more downforce to favor, the bad weather to help, they got shafted because they basically went out on a drying track, not a wet track. So yeah, that's I understand, but still it did ruin it for a lot of us. But having said that, the start of the race, wow, Oscar Piastri. I keep saying it, man. He's like I think it was David Coulthard that may have coined it, a quiet assassin. He really went after Lando and took that place. And that going down that Kemmel Straight is always a spot in Spa where you can get your passing done. And he sure as hell did that. Going up through Eau Rouge, almost flat. Anyway, your thoughts, Simon, tell me.
Piastri is a maestro, man. He's doing a master class. What year is he in? Anybody know what year? Is it third year, fourth year? What year is it?
For Piastri?
Yeah, second?
No, I think it's his third.
Oh, man. He's already showing everybody that he's going to win multiple championships, right? He is so calm, collect, and you never know what he's thinking.
Yeah.
You never know. The best out there, you never know, because when they get on and do somebody's commentating or asking them questions, they're going to tell you the general and basic answers. You never know what they're thinking. And I think he has Lando's card. I think he knows how to race against Lando. And I think he's figuring out Max. And that's it right now. That's all he needs to worry about to win the championship. There's no other driver he has to worry about. So in my mind, today was the day that he told everybody, yeah, this championship is mine. He told everybody. He told Lando, this championship is mine. You're going to have to come take it from me. And so, I was impressed. I liked the way he knew what Lando was going to do after that safety car departed, and he was right on his bumper, and he passed him in the rain. He didn't even hit the brake as he was going through those chicanes in the very beginning of that long straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel, Ray, about Oscar, but yeah, he's masterclassing right now.
Well, Oscar is putting a stamp. He's winning it this year. Yeah. He is going to be the champion, like it or not. And what saved or helped him execute the pass, because it started from turn one, but what sealed the deal was that he said that he had to figure out not to make sure that he did not lift as much as Lando would lift in Eau Rouge. Mm-hmm. And that's what gave him the momentum to catch him at the end down there in order to make that pass, right? And once he made the pass, it was done, right? Because he was in clean air. He could see because there was no water coming up from tires of cars in front of you. So the race was his to lose. And, he showed what he could do once out there. But he is letting Zach and company know that this year he is going to be the world champion. Regardless of what you have on your script, he is taking it this year because his manager, was it Weber?
Yes.
Right? Was on out there in pit lane, right? But when they did the initial lineup on the front straight, Weber was there, behind the car. So again, as you said, Ralph, Weber kind of knows what it's like to have something like that, and for sure he's spoken to Oscar, and Oscar is saying this is his year. Yeah. So we're going to see how it's going to unfold, but Oscar is saying this is his year. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Once he got it past there, Lacombe, and got past him, he slowly but steadily started skipping away from him and building up that distance. And I'll say this, although the thought came to me later on in the race, I thought about it and I said, I wonder if McLaren would really want to have a British world champion in their team.
Yeah, they do.
I just, the thought came to me later on in the race that I was like, this might be going back to the Nico Hamilton battle.
It is there.
And Mercedes wanting a German world champion in their team, kind of thing. But anyway, that's just me. I took a little bit out of your hat there, Ray, with a little conspiracy. But
it's the fact.
But he skipped away. But then the other thing with that
can I just comment on that a little bit?
Yes, you can.
You go to the next one. So I think the key word there that you stated, Ralph, was, do they want to have a British champion for McLaren? Yeah. They probably wanted that from day one. Are they going to get it this year? No, it's not going to happen. And as long as Piastri is there, I don't know if it's going to happen. Well, I'm telling you right now, if Piastri wins it and tastes that victory, it's going to be hard for him to give that up. And he has the mentality to win 4.
I'll say this. Yes, I agree with you. Do they want it? Yes, they want it. And I agree with you again. Piastri is not going to allow it to happen. And we saw that today. We saw that later on. We saw that he's able to adapt, or at least today he was. to make it work in his favor, whereas it seemed that statistically it would have worked against him. Might have. But anyway.
No, before you go, one last thing. Yeah. We all have to remember that next year, everybody's starting from ground zero, right? Piastri knows, well, the all drivers know, the drivers of the performing cars that are up front know that next year it's a crapshoot where they fall on the grid with the new regulations. So if you know what's under you today, you know that sucker is working, you're going to do whatever you can do to make sure you grab the championship because you don't know what's coming next year.
Yeah, you got to make that deposit now.
Yes.
Yeah. So from a manufacturing standpoint, we don't know who's going to win next year. Yes. Yeah. But I do know if Piastri and Lando are on the same team, Piastri is probably going to have more points than Lando next year.
Okay. I can't disagree. Disagree. Unless, and I've always said this, man, I don't like to poo-poo Lando. But when the season's over, if he takes that time to get that mental strength that he has at times to be more consistent with it, he will be a force to reckon with. It just seems that Oscar has his mental game. It's locked in.
Well, yeah. And, we might be beating this one to death, but Lando made some mistakes today that cost him an opportunity to win. Right? I don't see Verstappen doing something like that. I don't see old Lewis doing something like that. I don't ever see Piastri doing something like that. He had an opportunity to pass him if he didn't make about 3 or 4 mistakes in that last run. But
I'll close it this way. Just like you said, yes, it's the same old song with Lando. Right? That's why he needs to get his mental game on lock. But moving into that, the other position I was watching was Charles and Max. And Charles was able to hold on initially at the start, but by lap 11, he went a little wide, made a little mistake, and gave Max that opportunity, and he pounced, but still wasn't able to make it stick. So I give that one back to Charles for defending, but it shows you, just like you said about Lando, you made a mistake. You can't make a mistake with Max behind you. He will capitalize on it, But anyway, your thoughts, Ray?
Well, I think was it last race that Ferrari brought some upgrades, and I think they had some this race to the rear end, right? And I think
suspension.
Yeah, suspension setup. So I think Charles is maximizing it and using it, for that. And yes, he, Max, for the reason, the car wasn't as optimum for him. But I think if Max was able to get in the front, he'd be gone, right? It's just running within the traffic. It's a little bit more challenging. Plus the fact of the setup they had on the car, right? Because I think they went with more of a wet setup, so it was a higher downforce. So and what I believe threw a lot of people off is that the track was known to hold water longer, but it seemed like with the rain going out and the temperature, the track started drying up quicker than people anticipated, right? So it ended up really being, as long as you're on the race line, it ended up being a dry race. Right. And so it took a little bit more extra out of the people that had the high downforce because, you had more drag on those long straights than the other person. But even in saying so, I think Charles had to really work his butt off to stay in front of him.
Right. And yes, because the Ferrari was, I forgot, was it 5 miles per hour faster in the straight than the Red Bull? And I believe that's due to that higher downforce. Max having more of a wet setup than Charles having that. But moving into this, when you said about the Ferraris and the track drying out, Lewis was the one that came in, started from the pit lane and pitted first for slicks and was able to charge through the field. There were some other cars that pitted along with him and were able to do it, but that's where he rolled the dice, rolled it right window, and was able to move all the way up from the back, all the way up the field. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I think Ferrari, especially Lewis, capitalized on the upgrades, and they're still trying to figure it out. So I think next week is going to be a good gauge for them as they figure out the car. As you mentioned, Charles was able to use their upgrades and the downforce specifications on Red Bull to keep Verstappen in front of him. But Lewis, man, I mean, he was,
behind him. You said
behind
in front.
him, front, yeah, behind, front, same thing. But Lewis was, he did a masterclass of getting 11 spots, 3 on passes, and I think 7 or 8 during the pit and changing early. Ferrari really helped him this week. It was the first time that I saw that there was some cohesion, and Lewis was at fault this weekend, especially with the qualifying fiasco that he had on sprint and on the race.
Yep.
Lewis was not in the right head game this week, but the team seemed to be doing well because Leclerc and Lewis benefited from Ferrari, got them some more points for the second place of the constructors points. So I was happily surprised and pleased about Ferrari's performance this week, especially Lewis's.
Right.
Driver of the day too, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Lewis had nothing when he was racing younger, right? So he knows how to make stuff work, right? Because he was doing some good stuff even in the wet before he swapped over to different tires. He was, still attacking some people, trying to, and finding the dry line with what was going on, right? So he maximized what he had today. Yes, and I think his gamble to go to slicks paid off, right? And Ferrari listened, right, as opposed to questioning is what the choice was going to be. So I think he showed that he still has, as I said, Lewis is a racer. However, you need to give him a vehicle that he can race with, right? And today, with the weather element, he was able to show that he is still a racer, right? Because I think it was Julian Palmer even mentioned that in the commentary, right? But it's still there with him. It's just that what I keep saying is more intriguing to me is how the settings on the car could really be so intricate that the driver, they can't adjust it to get the driver to a spot where they feel comfortable, right? I think they said they worked on the brakes this go around, and he's more comfortable with the brakes now, right? So it's I just find it fascinating that something that nobody's talking about. What are these, breaking it down? So it's something maybe I'll try to figure out. But Lewis is still a racer. He still wants it, right? However, when he got to Alex Albon, he wasn't able to, execute on that.
Right. Well, before we go there, the thing I just wanted to close it out with that, when you raised that point, that was something I thought about as well. And it actually started from Red Bull, where I looked, just as you said, the setup of the car or the characteristics of there's a base characteristics of the car, and then the driver is coming in to set it up to suit his style. And that window appears to be so vast with some of these cars, like, to get that sweet spot where they can drive it and feel comfortable. The second Red Bull shows you that. I mean, I don't blame Yuki anymore. I don't blame him. I don't blame any of those guys, right? It's the car, right? And there'll be some that say, oh, you should be able to adapt. These guys are not superhuman. If you got to give them like the base criteria they need, and then they can excel from there. So that's what I noticed with Lewis is that, yes, he has always been someone to experiment with the car, to find things. And I remember Mercedes saying that his engineer saying, hey, we'll say this is what we're going to do. And he'll go out and like in practice sessions or whatever and start changing everything around because he's trying to figure it out to get a better setup. So these cars are infinitely adjustable and trying to find it. And then it changes based on the track you're going.
So look, could I come back with that?
Yeah.
Because I'm a little confused, right? Because yes, I understand that. Okay, we go with the premise that they're infinitely adjustable, right? Then it comes back to Formula One being a pinnacle of racing, that you have the best people supporting the driver. Why can't they refine it to find out what's adjustable? Because there's got to be a baseline, right? You know what the driver likes on the car, right? From a driving style. And then why can't they dial it in? Because I quite think that the adjustment is so minute once they go down the development path of the car that if the driver don't fit that that pattern,
Mm-hmm.
then they can't bring it to him anymore. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm thinking. Like that's what's going on with like Yuki, right? But also I wanted to say with Yuki, the new chief that took over. You know, so anyway, it's just I think that's what's going on with Yuki. We saw it in the past with the other drivers that they couldn't bring the car to them for whatever reason. So I don't know if there's that much of a window to make an adjustment after they decide the direction that they want to go in with the car for whichever driver. I don't know. That's
true. I mean, that brings us into like midfield momentum shifts, right?
Yeah.
And by that, talking about it when you mentioned Yuki, true. We saw a better performance from Yuki at this race, but we also know that his car now has the same floor that Max's car has, but he doesn't have the same wing that Max has, right? But we saw a much better performance from him. So, you know, with car setup, they're what it said to me is, again, to quote Bernie Eccleston once, when this guy asked him, like, yeah, they had the same car. He said, who told you they're the same car? The cars look the same. Lewis made a mention to this weekend as well that he got the upgrades now to his car that Charles had.
So they're playing favorites with the drivers, right? Because going back to, I just want to jump in here and say, see, Red Bull is hooking up their boy Max and leaving Yuki to be the slapdog, because they're not. Red Bull is a big organization. You're trying to tell me that they could not produce 2 copies of the upgrades and provide it to their drivers?
So I can answer that. There are prioritization and production limitations, right? Mm-hmm. So if Max has a floor and it's approved, it doesn't mean that Yuki automatically gets it. There are limits to the upgrades on the cars, and that is the reason why I don't have an answer for you on why all of a sudden this new director comes in and Yuki automatically has the floor, and maybe it was already in play and the timing just happened to be correct, or they had the floor and they were just having it sit there until he got the other upgrades and the wing upgrades as well. Because maybe they thought the floor and the wing had to work in tandem, but there are limits. You can't just do it automatically. What those limits are and what the requirements are around them and the guidelines around them, I don't know yet. I'll try to have an answer for that.
Before you take off, Ralph, I just want to say I'm saying that they're playing favorites and they're hooking their boy up and leaving the number 2 driver out to hang.
Well, let me say this, Ray. Yeah. I'm going to say, yeah, right? That's been F1, period. You know, as Simon said, and it's true, the upgrades will go to the number 1 driver first. That's the priority. You know, it's just now it's not as it's not as blatant. It doesn't seem, even though it still happens, you know, kind of thing. So they'll give it to Max. But what I do notice though is since we haven't touched on it, we'll do something separate about that. But since Christian Horner, this is the first we're seeing Yuki since Christian Horner was fired. He seems happy to me.
Sorry, I'm going to
yeah, because he knows the guys from Racing Laurent, the other team. Yeah,
right. He knows Laurent from Racing Bulls, right?
Yeah.
But I saw an interview with Yuki, and I was like, he seems real happy. I'd seen him before, and he doesn't seem as happy as that. But anyway, Simon, it seemed like you had something to say.
Well, yeah, I just did some research real quick, and yes, there is a priority on the number 1 driver.
Mm-hmm.
However, there isn't a priority if both drivers are going into the races at an equal playing field. Meaning,
correct.
Yuki had some crashes early on in the season. That went into his budget. That cost him his budget. So upgrades are a part of that budget. So if you have a lot of crashes and now you're eating into your budget. So that's the reason why there's a discrepancy there too. I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on with Red Bull right now, how this new director comes in and Yuki gets a new floor. Right. It could be coincidental. It could be on purpose. It could be, we don't know that. But yeah, there's a budget and there is some sort of guidelines around upgrades as well.
For all we know, I'll close it out. For all we know, he came and he said, listen, Max hasn't crashed. He has 2 floors over there. Give Yuki one of them, and let's move this on. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Now we come to the McLaren Civil War, or the shaping up of what seems to be coming a McLaren Civil War. Right now, we spoke earlier that Oscar's pass on Lando and skipping away. And we know that when Oscar came in, he put on a set of mediums and he went out. He got priority because he was in the lead. He pitted first. Then Lando came in and pitted. But before he came in, his race engineer came over and said, "What do you think about the hards?" Right? And then he said, "Yeah, that'll work." And on paper, the hards should be able to. They're a slower tire initially, but they could go to the end. The mediums were a quicker tire, but they're not as durable. Before I even say anything, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Simon.
Okay.
That was the only way he was going to catch up to Oscar, was to do a little different tire strategy. I don't know if that's favoritism. I think that's what I want my team to tell me. At some point, we're not teammates. At some point, I'm your rival. So give me a tire strategy to catch up to the number one guy up there, right? So put on the hards. It was a gamble, by the way, because of the weekend, and no one got a chance to test the hards. No one tested the hards and how durable they really are. They just made some assumption based on historical data. But it was a good play, I think, for Lando, because he was catching up to Piastri, but he made mistakes. So we don't really know if that was good or not. But yeah, I think it comes back to McLaren saying to guys, "Hey, don't take each other out, but you're free to race." Right. And that has to mean that you can make some changes with your tires as well.
Right.
That's how it's right.
Well, so yes, they have to. How can I say this? Yes, they came across on the radio and they gave Lando the option, right? But I think people are running on what Pirelli said. The tires could last, how long the tires could last in the race. Right. And Pirelli's data was wrong, right? To a point. I wouldn't say it was completely wrong. But they saw from the fact that the mediums that Pirelli predicted that would fall off quicker wasn't falling off as quick as Pirelli had predicted. So I think that kind of influenced Lando's decision, because, you're coming with a harder tire. Yes, it takes longer to warm up, but you can go the distance. Once you get into the tire temperature range, you can go the distance. But everybody else went mediums, and they were able to manage that tire, and because of to bring them to the end of the race, right? And sure enough, initially, Lando would have been slower, but I think I'm gonna side with Simon on saying, well, yeah, Lando could have pushed more, but he might have made a little hiccup, right? Because if you think about it, right, in dirty air, the tire burns up more because there's less downforce. But if you have, in theory, and if somebody out there in the audience can correct me, if you have a harder tire, it should last a bit longer for you to sit in that dirty air so that you can get up to that person and go. Right. If that person is not on a hard tire also, right? So I think, yes, Lando didn't maximize what was going on with the tire, with his tire choice.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, he made some mistakes that cost him too, but I also look at it as Oscar maximized his. Like, he got his mediums to last. Because he got that call and he knew that strategy was different than what he was on. So he knew what he had to do. He couldn't afford another pit stop. He would have lost.
Exactly.
And that's why I say hats off to him. But you can see it has to be, there's going to be greater tension within that team now, because any kind of deviation, we don't know if the conversation was had to say, okay, we're going to do, a 2-stop inters, then mediums, and then, or 3-stop, and then if we need to dump the other mediums, because they weren't even sure the mediums could go, right? And if that was shifted, that Lando's side shifted it. We don't know that. But even if it did, fair play to them. But Oscar picked up and said, oh, yeah? Okay. This is what I'm going to do.
So two things I want to talk about. I think you made a point, Ray, about the tire strategy and what Pirelli predicted the tires should be able to do at the race. But on Friday, on Saturday, it was 37 Celsius, dry, right? So I'm assuming they're being more conservative on using that data than a rain day where it was 27 degrees Celsius. The ground was wet. You should be able to get at least 5 or 6 more laps out of those tires with the cooler temperatures on the ground and being somewhat wet. And then so that data probably was thrown out, and they didn't know what they were going to get with the hards or the mediums. I would believe. The second thing is during pre-race, our boy Nico Rosberg was on the channel talking, right? And this is kind of going back to what you said, Ralph. Right now, I think they're coexisting. Mm-hmm. They're friends, mm-hmm. both Lando and Oscar, and they're going to do whatever it takes to not only win but make sure McLaren wins everything. Mm-hmm. They're going to be team players, but there's going to come a point mm-hmm. where they're going to have to hate each other.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason why I say that because Nico was reminiscing on his summers and relationship with Lewis pre-race, mm-hmm. showing pictures of them racing on motorcycles and blah, blah, blah during the summer. They were mm-hmm. best friends to a point when Lewis had a safe at his house in Monaco. And right. Nico was saying because of 2016, that friendship is a little spoiled, right? So there's going to become a point where everything's on the line, your reputation, you're in the public eye, money, and you're going to have to hate the guy that you're running against, right? He said they've mended those fences, but it's not the same as it was prior. And they were best friends for years.
Well, for what you said mm-hmm. about Lando and Oscar, I thought of something my father said. They're only friendly. They're not friends.
Yeah, they're not best friends like Nico and Lewis hanging out.
Right. They're only friendly.
Right.
They're not friends. They're not best friends. And it's been said by other drivers. Actually, a very good interview on the High Performance Podcast with Carlos Sainz that I was listening to. And yeah, Carlos said it too. He goes, maybe after F1. He named a couple of drivers. He said, we could be good friends. He said, but within F1, the nature of the sport, no, you can't, so that says it all. Ray,
yeah, because I think when it comes to Rosberg and Lewis, the way Rosberg won the championships, they'll never be back again. I think if there wasn't so much play by the team in adjusting things in Rosberg's direction, I think it would be different with his relationship and Lewis, right? Because the team came around, and my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt that, Lewis might have been given substandard team support during that era in order for the team to produce what they wanted to produce for Rosberg. Right. And I think if that were me in that situation, I would feel a way and not want, and probably it would strain our relationship, as opposed to if you gave him the same thing I have and he walked up by me, then if I don't adjust, then poo-poo on me, right? But I think the way the team went about doing it, where they orchestrated it by giving Lewis substandard support, it's going to leave a taste in somebody's mouth. I think so. And I think, when we come to the McLaren guys, I haven't seen it yet because, again, as I said, during that time, Orlando's wall came to him and said, hey, do you want to do hards? Right. Or, and he wanted hards. So they gave him the choice. And it's just that for whatever reason, he wasn't able to capitalize on that, so, yeah.
Well, you know what? You're right. You're right. And not to beat it up, but you're right. We don't see any overt dirty tricks or dirty maneuvers, right? You're right. We saw Rosberg at Monaco. He intentionally drove his car up the escape road, so it killed Lewis. They had to stop the qualifying. Lewis had to abort his lap, and he couldn't try to challenge for pole. 30, right? Now that's Formula One, and I'll say this. Going back again, and not touting Lewis, but these are the ones I know. We know Michael had them too, but Lewis and Fernando at McLaren. Fernando went to blackmail Ron Dennis and Martin Whitmarsh that he wanted Lewis's car to run out of gas so he could win. And when they wouldn't do it, he threatened them that he was going to reveal emails to Max Mosley and them in that Spygate saga that they got. So, you know, when I'm like, yo, they always say, oh, this is like a den of sharks. I'm like,
is this allegedly or this is
no,
this
sir?
Is
this is documented.
What?
Documented. Okay.
Man.
So that's the little bit that we've gotten to see behind the curtain on that. It's a dirty sport when it comes down to winning, right?
Yeah.
With some people. That's why you can't be friends. So anyway, I'm grateful that so far, yes, at McLaren, even though I toyed with it, we're not seeing any overt things like that. You know, go ahead. Well, not yet. Go ahead, Simon.
And I think it's because Zach is saying race. Go ahead and race. Just don't take each other out like you did a year ago, right? And they're allowing them to race and allowing them to make some decisions. And so, to me, you take some of the animosity out by doing that as teammates. But if it comes down to there's between 8 points between second and first, who's going to win the last race and who's going to win the championship? Yeah, I tell you right now, both of them are going to do whatever it takes to win that championship.
Of course,
and somebody's going to be upset.
Of course. So to close it out with the rest of the midfield, just to say it, I mean, I was impressed with Alex Albon and Williams. I mean, Lewis couldn't make any headway on him.
Yep.
You know, he came in and he finished 6th, I believe. And then you have Liam Lawson. I mean, Isaac Hadjar kind of got messed up with the pit strategy for tires and it threw him off. But Liam did well. He finished in 8th. So, and Bortoletto, Gabriel Bortoletto and Pierre Gasly. I mean, those teams like Kick Sauber and Alpine, granted, like we said, next year everything, it's like you're shuffling the dominoes or you're shuffling the cards or whatever. We're going to see who comes out. But it's nice to see them starting to pick up those teams. Anyone comments?
No, I totally agree.
So having said that, we're going to move into predictions.
What? Ray wants to say
Ray
you cut me out, bro.
No, I said anyone has anything.
Yeah, and Simon answered, so I was trying to be nice. But next time I'm going to talk over Simon.
No, Formula One, Ray. You can't be nice. Formula One.
Okay,
nice.
okay. All right. I think Lewis ran out of tire when he got to Albon. I think that's what happened. He ran out of tire because he was the first one to go to the mediums before everybody else. So I think he used up what he had and he couldn't capitalize on it. So that's, that's my takeaway, because it did bother me to say, how come he can't get around this guy and how come, whatever. But it just dawned that he might have gotten to the limit of his medium and the medium tires and didn't, and decide, well, maybe I just got to settle for this, because the way Lewis was driving, if he could have made it up to the podium, he was going for that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Of course. So moving to predictions. I'm going to start with you, Ray.
Yes, okay. Please do.
Let me think about it. So it's going to be McLaren 1-2.
Okay.
And right now, the number 3 spot may be a Charles Verstappen, because unless there's some big change with the, I think Charles is liking whatever changes are on the car right now, right? And I think unless Verstappen gets something else to his car, right, it's going to be between Charles and McLaren. So I got to say Oscar for the next race, Lando, and then I'm going to say Verstappen.
Okay, Simon.
Yeah, I'm going to change mine. I actually had Norris, Verstappen, and Piastri, but I think Oscar is determined at this point.
Right.
And he's not making mistakes. He's just not making mistakes. Even if he's should be third on winning he comes in first because he doesn't make mistakes, doesn't make errors. Or second. So I'm going to go Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go, I think Ferrari, one of the Ferrari, I think it's going to be Charles, of course, because he's just driving. He knows the car more. And I think Verstappen or Lando is going to be third. So I'm just going to go with Lando because I don't think he's not going to be on the podium this year unless he crashes.
Okay. Well, I agree. I think I know Oscar is the easy pick, but I think it is going to be Oscar number one. I still think Lando will be second, and third. Charles is the wild card right now. He's been up there in third, but Max isn't done yet, so it's going to be Max in third. I think.
All right.
So having said that, everyone, we're coming back to you this weekend coming for the Grand Prix in Hungary, and we'll see how our predictions pan out and how that race turns out. So until then, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and stay up to date on all things the fellas. And we'll see you in a week. Take care.